Marko Francišković's Croatian Struggle, a review by Tomas Sablic of Croatian Jihad, Aryan Journey from Postmodernism to Pre-Revelation. The phrase Croatian Jihad, Aryan Journey from Postmodernism to Pre-Revelation, the title of the book, may be perceived as irrational, contradictory, bizarre, and almost schizophrenic. This book is a sledgehammer, destroying the basis of how we view things, what we think about cultures around the world, politics, etc., and will be the subject of this review. A few disclaimers. When Francišković refers to Aryans, he means its linguistic meaning, which is noble people. When Francišković refers to Zionists, he literally just means Zionists, not all Jews. When Francišković refers to Croatian Jihad or an Aryan Jihad, he means a peaceful and spiritual struggle, not violent terrorism. The beginning. The first chapter of the book is called Warming. In this chapter, Francišković describes running along the Sava River in the unbearable summer heat. As a result of physical effort and exhaustion, what we consider the state of real life begins to change, dissolve, twist, disappear, and then reshapes and exalt itself in his mind, acquiring real and hidden meanings. Like a Sufi, he sees with his spiritual eye through the scenes that pass him. And these scenes are nothing but an undoubted reflection of the misery and the misery of modern man, incarnated into a robotized, self-destructive being, completely alienated from the divine essence. He sees the graffiti on the abandoned brutalist buildings left from the Yugoslav days, garbage scattered on the ground, empty beer bottles, and people walking their dogs instead of playing with smiling children. Because his current mystical experience didn't eclipse his power of analysis and ability to think critically, he was able to interpret what occurred. From education, sports, betting, music, film, social networks, pornography, pharmacology, psychostimulants, commercial advertising, to inevitable politics. All these innumerable hypnotic levers and colorful buttons are subordinated to the preservation of the dictatorship of stupidity. Seductive traps, spiritual poisons, and dazzling virtual deceptions are all manifestations of the same system. Marko identifies this system as the Prince of Darkness. He then goes on to say that it has its own specific definition, Zionism. And then, due to the undeniable light of knowledge, the author's pure heart receives Islam. Only through Islam can we wisely and fully enjoy the blessings of life, because otherwise we fall on our faces before them, the dictatorship of stupidity, like mindless idolaters. The foundations. The second part of this book develops through a key theological, historical, and esoteric dialogue with Mladen Schwarz, who was born in a Jewish family of communists from Belgrade, then apostatized from Judaism, becoming a radical and, ironically, a quite anti-Semitic philosopher. This chapter touches on the centuries-old regional ethnic problems and the collective psychological consequences resulting from the wars during the disintegration of the Socialist Federal Republics of Yugoslavia, still igniting international animosities, as well as general history, politics, sociology, religion, philosophy, and global geostrategic events. Let's start from the beginning. Marko, like many Croatians, truly feels with his whole being that Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina are inseparable. Ante Starčević, who is considered father of the Croatian homeland, considered, as evident in his writings, that Bosniaks are the most original, purest, and indigenous members of the Croatian nation since the beginning of time. Accordingly, Marko Francišković firmly stands against any kind of arrogant nationalistic exclusivity, i.e. the Croatian Democratic Union myth that Croatians can be only Catholics. We will talk more about Croatian Democratic Union soon. Muslims, Bosnia and Mother Croatia. One of the greatest forms of Bosnia's rich cultural heritage is Arebica, which is the Croatian or Bosniak language transliterated into Arabic script. The oldest text recorded is called Ćirvat Turkisi, which translates to Croatian song. Throughout history, Croatians and Muslims, also known as Bosniaks, maintained such a strong brotherhood. We were considered one nation. In the face of Serb colonization and aggression centuries ago, the great Islamic poets, muftis, and leaders of Bosnia identified with the Croatian nation. Safet Beg Bašagić would write poems about the beautiful Croatian language and would partake in Croatian political life. Ante Pavelić, the would-be leader of the independent state of Croatia, was educated in a mekteb, an Islamic school for kids. Many leaders of the Croatian revolutionary organization, UHRO Ustaša, were Muslims. Pavelić's right-hand man, the vice president of Croatia from 1941 until the fall of Croatian state in 1945, was Džafer Kulenović, a Muslim. During the time of the independent state of Croatia, there was a big mosque in the middle of the capital of Croatia, Zagreb, named the Ante Pavelić Mosque. After the communist Yugoslav partisans took control over Zagreb and the rest of Croatia, they destroyed the Grand Mosque. Among these partisans was Franjo Tuđman, the would-be founder of HDZ, Croatian Democratic Union. But we'll get to that later. After the fall of the Croatian state, the Croatian Muslim leaders set up their base in Damascus, where in 1948 contributed Ustaša war experience and former Croatian soldiers to the Arab Liberation Army against the Zionist forces. Franjo Tuđman and HDZ. Once Yugoslavia ceased to exist, all former communists fled to the HDZ party founded by Franjo Tuđman. Marko Francišković writes that Franjo Tuđman was one of the most promising generals of the Yugoslav People's Army. He completed his schooling at Harvard, where he would be recruited by Kissinger and other members of that most powerful Zionist intellectual and militaristic fraternity. It was with that the centuries-old unity of Croatia and Bosnia, Croatians and Muslims, would also cease, as per request of the Zionist intellectual and militaristic fraternity. In the beginning of disintegration of Yugoslavia, Croatian freedom fighter Blaž Kraljević returned from years of exile to Croatia, where he organized the legendary Croatian Defense Forces, HOS, which partially consisted of Muslim fighters. The other Croatian force which was established was the Croatian Defense Council, HVO, supported by Tuđman's Croatian Democratic Union. After a meeting between Blaž Kraljević and the leaders of the HVO, Blaž Kraljević and his men were shot in an ambush.
1. Banovina Horosan, 2. Banovina Horosan, 3. Banovina Horosan, 4. Banovina Horosan, 5. Banovina Horosan, 6. Banovina Horosan, 7. Banovina Horosan, 8. Banovina Horosan, 9. Banovina Horosan, 10. Banovina Horosan, 11. Banovina Horosan, 12. Banovina Horosan, 13. Banovina Horosan, 14. Banovina Horosan, 15. Banovina Horosan, 16. Banovina Horosan, 17. Banovina Horosan, 18. Banovina Horosan, 19. Banovina Horosan, 20. Banovina Horosan, 21. Banovina Horosan, 22. Banovina Horosan, 23. Banovina Horosan, 24. Banovina Horosan, 25. Banovina Horosan, 26. Banovina Horosan, 27. Banovina Horosan, 28. Banovina Horosan, 29. Banovina Horosan, 30. Banovina Horosan, 31. Ba
As a result, HOS disbanded, and with that, the centuries-old unity between Muslims and Croats. What followed was a brutal war between Croats and Muslims, in which Islamic architecture was destroyed and Croat villages burnt. Marko Francišković writes that Franjo Tuđman started a war he could never win, a war that sowed hatred and intolerance between two brotherly peoples. A war which was a laboratory experiment for what would happen later in Afghanistan, Iraq, North Africa, and the rest of the Middle East. What Francišković thinks are the Zionists' plans. According to Francišković, directed genocidal wars in the Middle East and North Africa deliberately provoked the migration of millions of refugees with the aim of mixing races, peoples, and cultures. The target is designed to pervert and desecrate the authenticity of the religion of Islam. This racially mixed, despiritualized, and lost crowd will soon not remember their origin, either by father or mother, and consequently not even their original traditional religious environment. Yes, you read this correctly. In the author's opinion, along with destroying Europe, the Zionists are sending Muslims to European land so they can be secularized, and thus their culture and religion, Islam, being destroyed. Finally, we see the peak of the visionary idea hidden in the title of his utopian book, Croatian Jihad. As written by Marko Francišković, it would be a jihad led by people of the white race, which would initially move from Bosnia and Herzegovina, integrating both countries into an Islamic theocratic state, Banovina Horosan. In short, Banovina Horosan would territorially unite the present borders of the Republic of Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, with its seat on the island of Vis. And on the global level, it would be a pragmatic trigger for the comprehensive Aryan Jihad of the European nations, with one goal and one path, to go straight across Turkey towards the Holy Jerusalem and stop the Zionists. The author directly presents his utopia to the astonished Mladen Švarc, but also explains every detail of these seemingly unfeasible political state ideas in a prudent and argumentative manner. According to Islamic theosophical tradition, Khorasan is the territory where, on the eve of the Judgment Day, the figure Imam Mehdi will appear, warning the Orthodox not to err and stumble before the false Zionist Messiah, the Antichrist, Dajjal. Imam Mehdi directs them straight to the place of descent and the person of the true Messiah, Isa, or Jesus Christ, incarnated in Damascus. Make no mistake, the utopian Banovina Horosan is not a creative staging of any anti-Semitic, ethno-nationalist or racial segregation state. It is the Aryans, or in translation, the noble ones, who ensure the equality and survival of every honest and moral individual, of every confessional community, every race or nation, and the preservation of their original cultures and traditions from definite ruin, disappearance and destruction, which, according to the precise, well-designed Zionist plan, is already in full implementation. Everyone is welcomed on this journey, but before that, they must bravely go through the fire of the great Jihad, a spiritual effort, in order to cleanse their heart, body and mind of psychophysical poisons and weaknesses, moral corruption, fornication, greed, slander, fear of worldly powers, addictions to narcotics, alcohol, etc. Otherwise, they will not be able to protect themselves from the countless traps of the Antichrist that lurk unhardened, unpurified souls, both materially and spiritually. And the march on Jerusalem is only a small jihad, which without the big one, the purification of spirit and body, will have no effect, but quite the opposite. Ban Jelačić and Imam Ali, the Shia aspect of the Aryan Jihad. Shia concepts also make its way into Francišković's book. Josip Jelačić was one of the greatest Croats to ever live. Without his sacrifice, a Croatian nation wouldn't exist. Jelačić's army, almost equal percentages of Catholics, Muslims, and Orthodox, fought together. As a sign of exceptional honor and respect, Ban Josip Jelačić was presented by the Bosnians with a beautiful horse and a rare, legendary damask saber, forged in secret by the time-lost art of the great masters from Damascus. On that saber, decorated with arabesques and cartouches, on one side of the surface it is written in Arabic, Latin transliteration, Taqwa Allah, I relied on Allah, and on the other, La Fata ila Ali, La Saif ila Zulfikar, no hero but Ali and no saber but Zulfikar. The author, Marko Francišković, quotes from Sahih Muslim, in which the Prophet ﷺ tells Muslims that after his departure from this world, they will keep the holy book of Allah and the Ahl Bayt, i.e. bloodline, for him. The bloodline of God's Prophet Muhammad, may God bless him and grant him peace, originates from the offspring of his daughter Hazrat Fatima and her husband, the fourth and the last righteous caliph, Hazrat Ali ibn Abu Talib, the greatest and noblest Islamic hero. Caliph Ali, by God's grace, received that celebrated and far-famed sword Zulfikar, forged in the heavens by God's flame, with which he necessarily emerged victorious from every battle. From the above, one could hasten the conclusion that the author deviates in the direction of the Shiite interpretation of Islam, but he categorically rejects any form of sectarianism that leads to a rift between the faith of the Islamic Ummah. Marko Francišković unyieldingly adheres to Islam with his mind, heart, and life practice exclusively in the way prescribed by the Holy Quran and Hadith. Islam and nations. The author understands that the faith of Islam is a dynamic process and that the torch of leadership was transmitted by faith from nation to nation, from civilization to civilization, constantly evolving in accordance with the challenges of the real moment. The glorious torch of faith would be given to those with pure hearts and lost to those who, over time, drowning in decadence, egoism, and hedonism, became apostates and transgressors of Allah's laws in soul and deed. The Arabs were the first to receive the torch of Islam, and then, when they strayed, they were terribly overrun by Mongols. And they did this so mercilessly that not a stone was left where they hadn't ridden over. When the Mongol moguls went astray, the Ottoman Turks received the bow of faith, creating a huge empire, one of the biggest the world has ever seen. The author, in his utopian fiction, based on historical facts and an excellent understanding of theological doctrines, believes that the moment has come for the light of faith to be taken over by the Aryan peoples. And so, the beacon of true faith of Islam would shine victoriously in his imagined utopian state, spreading its brilliance from Sarajevo to Zagreb, from Bosnia and Herzegovina to Croatia, uniting these two beautiful countries into one. Banovina Horosan. Conclusion. That's why all of us, despite all our differences, no matter how rooted they may seem, have only one real and most dangerous opponent who has been preparing a terrible fate for us for a long time, and its name is Zionism. Therefore, the book Croatian Jihad, with a loud shout, sends a visionary message to everyone. Led by Aryan Muslims, let us move with pure, brave hearts and noble, sanctified spirits in the direction of Ban Josip Jelačić saber, to Jerusalem, and only to Jerusalem. This was a book review by Tomas Sablic of Croatian Jihad, Aryan Journey from Postmodernism to Pre-Revelation. The book is in the process of being translated into English. A sample is available for download on our website, where you can also find out more about Marko, as well as Marko's written and video materials translated into English. Feel free to reach out, as we would love to hear from you. God bless.